Do you want to become a teacher in Canada? Can you become a teacher in Canada? Maybe you're a teacher in another country and wondering if you can continue your career here. Or maybe you're in Canada already thinking how hard it can be. Well, let me tell you, it's not as simple as applying to a school and getting hired like any other job. In fact, the process can be surprisingly complex, especially for newcomers. Do you need a teaching license? Yes. Can you use your foreign degree? Well, it depends. Is teaching a good paying job? Absolutely, yes. But again, it depends. And if you're considering teaching in Canada, whether it's a newcomer or a local, if you need to understand the full picture before you dive into it. Qualifications, licensing requirements, job prospects, salaries, and even some hidden challenges that nobody talks about. And in the next video, I'm going to go through in detail as how we can apply, where to apply in all of those areas. If you're new to my channel, my name is Gautam. I talk about HR, careers, life in Canada, and much more beyond that. Consider subscribing to my channel because it's a win-win. Your journey, my story. All right, let's get into it. Do you need a teaching license in Canada? The short answer is absolutely yes. In Canada, unlike probably several other countries, teaching is a regulated profession. And that means you cannot just apply for a school job without the right certifications from the province. And each province and territory has its own rules. For example, in Ontario, you need a license from the Ontario College of Teachers. And in British Columbia, you apply through the Teacher Regulation Branch. And in Alberta is the Teaching and Leadership Certification Branch. However, to integrate all of these provinces together, there's a Teach for Canada, which is again a private body that's been created, which is going to help the individuals to get their certifications done and all meet the language requirements, get their certifications. Submit all the documentations to the provinces and all of it. Like I said, I'm going to cover that in detail in another video. While all of these are province-specific certification requirements, but suppose you already have an Ontario license, and you're moving to probably New Brunswick, so you have to apply or rather transfer your license from Ontario to New Brunswick. So just because you got a license in Ontario doesn't mean that you can teach across Canada, because provincial requirements and licensing criteria is extremely different, because all of the schools, the bodies function independently and they're not integrated. So even if you are a certified teacher with sort of qualifications, the UK, or even for that matter, Philippines, you still need to go through the Canadian licensing process. Let's understand what qualifications you need for getting that license requirements met. And for becoming a licensed teacher in Canada, most provinces would ask you for a bachelor's degree in education, usually a 2-year program. I think now probably it's a 2-year program in India, but probably you might complete in 1 year as well. And another bachelor's degree in a different subject, of course, and a completion of a teaching practicum, which is again a practical training experience that you would need, where you worked in a supervised class environment. And proof of English or French proficiency in case you have in case your medium of instruction is English or French, absolutely that will not be required. But if you have a teaching degree from another country, you still need to go through the credential evaluation through WEST or ICAS to verify your degree meets the required credit and the percentage criteria that the provinces have. If that's not being met, probably you may be asked to complete additional courses to meet the certification requirements, like a bridging program if in case your qualifications don't fully match Canadian requirements. A big question: can newcomers become teachers in Canada? Now, if you're a teacher from another country, you might be thinking, can I teach in Canada right away? It's absolutely complicated process. If you're coming from the countries like the US, the UK, or Australia, your qualifications may be recognized with few extra steps. But if you are from the south side of it, like India or the Philippines or any other non-Western countries, you may need additional training before getting licensed. And here exactly where newcomers get stuck. And even if you have years of teaching experience abroad, you still need to go through the Canadian process. And the biggest challenge, it takes time. The licensing process can take months, sometimes even a year or more. That's why many internationally trained teachers end up working in daycares, private tutoring, or even non-teaching jobs while they wait for this process to complete. Keeping the requirements aside, let's understand how much the teachers earn in Canada, because that may be one of the biggest questions in a lot of people's mind. Is it a well-paying job? Is it all this effort worth enough for me to aim to get the certification? The answer is yes and no. And these are the salary estimates province-wise as for 2024 estimates. Ontario, if you're based in and trying to get a license there, it's about $55,000 to $100,000 per year. And British Columbia, you can earn typically between 50 to 90,000 per year. And Alberta is also in similar lines, which is about 60 to 105,000 per year. And Quebec is the range about 45 to 85,000 per year. And if you're in Atlantic, anywhere, Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or Prince Edward Island, it's 45 to 80,000 per year. And if you're an entry level teacher, usually they start between 45 to 60 and they grow based on the years of experience that they accumulate. And if in large provinces like Alberta or Ontario, the senior teachers have the potential to earn the $100,000 per year. That sounds pretty good, right? But here exactly where you need to pay attention. Teaching jobs are highly competitive because substitute teachers earn less and don't always get that full-time hours. It's as good as a part-time casual opportunity. But newcomers may struggle to find jobs immediately because you're trying to set your foot strong. And many teachers start as substitutes, means supply teachers, basically to fill in any teacher's absence, and before getting a full-time permanent position. And there are two main types of schools in Canada. And absolutely private schools, which are absolutely free and government funded. They pay higher salaries, better job security, requires provincial teaching certification, more competition, of course, for these jobs. In the similar lines, private schools also exist in Canada, and they can be easier to get hired, especially if you are a newcomer. And sometimes lower salaries could be one of it and may not require a provincial certification because it's a private school. And they have more flexibility in terms of teaching methodologies because it's not probably a regulated one. Some newcomers start in private schools or sort of a tutoring centers while working on their public school certification. And we also have early childhood educators in Canada who are ECEs. And if you don't have a full time teaching degree, but still want to work with kids, because if you enjoy, you might consider becoming an early childhood educator, which is an ECE program. And typically, ECEs work in daycares or the preschools and kindergarten programs, but the salary is usually lower, which is around 35 to 50,000 per annum. The good news within this one is ECE certification is faster and easier to obtain than a full-time license for the teaching programs. Now, what if you're thinking, I don't want to teach kids, going to be pretty tricky for me to manage them, but I want just lies towards teaching adults. Do I need a certification? The good news here is colleges and the universities teaching does not require a teaching license. If you have a master's or even the bachelor's or with a bachelor's of degree or PhD, you can apply to teach at a university or a college without going through the licensing process. And these college instructors in fields like business, IT, and healthcare are absolutely in high demand. However, some jobs within these colleges can be contract based with less job security compared to the public school teaching. You may have this question, are there enough teaching jobs in Canada? Well, this depends on where you are, like such as Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. Like talked about, there is absolute high competition for full-time teaching jobs. And smaller cities and rural areas, more demand, easier to get hired. Easier doesn't mean that you walk into their door and they welcome you to come and join them. No, that's not what I mean. Probably there may be less competitive because of the licensing process and may not be, not necessarily many of them may be applying for those jobs. So in that way, I mean relatively. And the bonus point, if you're a French speaking teacher, you are absolutely on demand for Ontario, New Brunswick, and Quebec regions. And more especially, irrespective of where you are, and if you're trying to relocate to smaller communities, the towns, the rural areas, you will find jobs much easier because schools are there everywhere, right? So lastly, let's understand is teaching a good career in Canada. Let's look at the advantages it provides. Absolutely a stable career if you're licensed, good salary with good experience, high demand in some areas. On the con side of it, tough licensing process for newcomers. It's not easy. High competition in major cities, and sometimes it may take a lot of time to get a permanent position. If you get it, it's absolutely worth it. You will love it. So, should you become a teacher in Canada? Maybe yes, if you're passionate about teaching and willing to go through the process. Absolutely. But if you're looking for a quick career change or an easy job, well, it might not be the best option for you. But what do you think? Would you go through the complicated process to become a teacher in Canada? Let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching Great Tales.